bombshell in the Lieutenant General Flynn sentencing. A judge is now demanding answers over some extraordinarily sketchy evidence from Robert Mueller's office. We also have new damning information of Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dossier, and the Clinton Foundation, we can report tonight, is being investigated by the FBI tonight. We'll also update you on the battle over the border wall and funding, and why a government shutdown is not something you have to fear. Stay tuned. Part two also of my one-on-one interview with the First Lady Melania Trump, just minutes away. We start with a really important, in many ways sad, breaking news opening monologue. All right, so I'm going to go through this slowly, and what I'm going to reveal to you doesn't matter where you stand on the political spectrum. It should shock every American to their core. Let's start at the beginning. On January 24th, 2017, that's the first week of Donald Trump's presidency, then Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe called then National Security Advisor Michael Flynn to discuss some upcoming training. The conversation quickly turned to a casual request from McCabe to Flynn that he speak with FBI agents about his overseas communications, which we now know were surveilled by federal officials. Remember, Flynn was the incoming National Security Advisor. It would not be unusual for him to have discussions with foreign leaders and soon-to-be counterparts. What is unusual is this. We know Flynn's surveillance, the unmasking, the lack of minimization of his name, and the leaking of raw intelligence by the outgoing administration, the Obama administration, is beyond rare, likely illicit in terms of its actions. In other words, a crime. But having done nothing wrong himself, Flynn agreed to the meeting the very same day at the White House. He also agreed not to have any attorneys present per Andrew McCabe, the Deputy FBI Director's request. McCabe literally told General Flynn a lawyer was not necessary. McCabe, who would soon be fired himself for lying, told him this. Now, during the meeting, Flynn was casually questioned by two FBI agents, including, there he is, Peter Strzok. You know, the guy that loathed Donald Trump, the man that said Hillary Clinton should win 100 million to zero, the man with the insurance policy and the media leak strategy against the new president, should he happen to win, the man who was ultimately fired because of his extreme anti-Trump bias. Well, according to the FBI's report of the meeting, that's known as a 302, where they discuss the meeting with somebody they talked to. It's called a 302. Agents did not on purpose warn General Flynn about any potential crimes, and they didn't ask him to explain or clarify any inconsistencies in his answers, and because they wanted him to be, quote, relaxed. This is, by its very definition, a perjury trap. You don't tell somebody you're really investigating, let's put him in a relaxed position, let him talk to us, and then, by the way, you don't need a lawyer. Now, as we speak, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn's life, it has been on hold for a long time. He's awaiting sentencing for allegedly lying to investigators during that meeting, a meeting so unusual that even fired FBI Director James Comey himself has now admitted was not standard operating procedure. And he actually, this is the sickest part of it, bragged that he ordered it anyway because he thought he could get away with it. This is what we've been telling you. Abuse of power, corruption, not rank and file FBI, the highest levels at the FBI and the DOJ. It shows you this. Week one of the Trump administration, the fix was in from day one. Watch this.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. The protocol, two men that all of us have perhaps increased appreciation for over the last 2 years. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over.
I wouldn't have tried. I wouldn't have gotten away with this in a prior administration. Really? This is week one of the Trump presidency. Isn't the name of Jim Comey's book A Higher Loyalty? Wouldn't that be to the United States Constitution, the rule of law, equal justice under the law? Does that sound like a virtuous public servant to you, or someone trying to trap Lieutenant General Flynn? From day one, this is how these corrupt officials, again, not rank and file, treated a duly elected president, his first week in office, a 33-year, three-star veteran hero, 5 years in combat. And here we have James Comey fired for mishandling the Clinton investigation. He, too, wanted Hillary to win. Andrew McCabe, he set up the meeting on the phone and said, you don't need a lawyer, fired by the FBI for lying. And one of the agents meeting with Flynn, Peter Strzok, of course known, fired for his rampant anti-Trump bias. In other words, the three main people initially involved in the Flynn case have been fired. Think about that. One day after learning about the shady interrogation tactics from the FBI, well, there's a judge, U.S. District Judge named Emmett Sullivan. He has now ordered the special counsel to turn over all of the government's documents related to this questioning of General Flynn. By the way, by tomorrow, a rare move from a federal judge, which brings us to a shocking new development. The Federalist pointed out something that was brilliant. What could be, in my mind, a major bombshell inside the Flynn sentencing memo. They pointed out footnote 23. Footnote 23 references the 302 memo of August 22nd, 2017. Flynn's interview was in January the 24th, 4 days into the presidency. Flynn's interview with the FBI happened way back when. Now, here's the problem. Flynn's interview with the FBI on January 24th, 2017, the 302 is written 7 months later. Now, in text messages, unfortunately, for Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, they seem to reference Flynn's interview, his 302, being completed on February 14th. And meanwhile, James Comey, he references reading this 302 before he was fired in May. So the question remains, why was a new 302 drafted in August by the special counsel? What information had changed? Can it be trusted? Was there an earlier 302 memo? Were there revisions in the memo? And is there a smoking gun here? Either way, we deserve answers. Now, tomorrow by 3 p.m., U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan could have the answers to all these questions. That's how long he's given the special counsel to turn over these documents related to the FBI's interview of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. This is the same judge who dismissed the corruption convictions, 8 convictions, of Republican Senator Ted Stevens after discovering rampant misconduct from federal prosecutors in that case, including what he called a blatant attempt to withhold exculpatory evidence. Now, we have been pointing out, it's important to note, that the lead prosecutor in the special counsel investigation, Mueller's pit bull, Andrew Weissman. We've talked a lot about him and Jeannie Ray, who worked for the Clinton Foundation. But Weissman in particular, he's the pit bull, has quite a track record with exculpatory evidence. In the case of Anderson Accounting, the Supreme Court, remember, overturned Weissman's prosecution 9-0. Doesn't happen that often. In the case of 4 Merrill executives who went to jail for a year, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned those convictions. Whole year of their life gone. After Weissman was also rebuked for what? Withholding exculpatory evidence. Why would Mueller ever hire that guy? Now, tonight, whatever happens in the case of Lieutenant General Flynn, the damage is done. Legal bills have cost this man his home, wrecked his finances, destroyed his impeccable reputation, 33 years in the military, 5 years of combat duty, tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Here's our question tonight. Is this how we are going to treat American servicemen and women, war heroes? Because if it is, nobody's safe. This is not how a fair justice system is supposed to operate in a constitutional republic. Instead, this is the sad part to me, everything we've been telling you about for nearly 2 years, we are facing a two-tier justice system where anybody apparently associated with Trump is going to be targeted. Democrats, they seem to always get off scot-free. And that, of course, includes Hillary Clinton. But breaking today, we learned some damning new information about her bought and paid for dirty dossier. You know, the law firm that hired Christopher Steele, well, the law firm actually funneled money to the Fusion GPS, the op research group, to put the seedy document together. That was Perkins Coie. Well, he considered using Christopher Steele the findings to challenge the 2016 election results in court. That's why he was doing it, which makes yet another way Hillary Clinton was planning to use the dirty dossier to rig the election after the election should she lose. And of course, this was all done with the money funneled through a law firm as a legal expense, not a political expense. Sounds like campaign finance issues. A lot of people in the media are interested in that topic, but not with Hillary. Yet no investigation into that campaign finance violation. The question we all have to ask ourselves is why? Now, it should be obvious. Her last name is not Trump. She's not anyone who supports Trump. So she has a whole different justice system, one that Trump supporters don't have. We'll have a lot more on this later, but also tonight. Once again, Democrats continuing to play politics with our nation's security. President Trump is standing strong, calling out the far left's border hypocrisy. Watch this.
Fact is, they've always supported fences and walls and partitions, but you know what? They only don't want to do it because of me. We need to have the wall. We need border security. Whatever it takes to get border security, I will do it. We've done a really fantastic job with what we have. We can do an almost perfect job if we have the wall and proper border security. And that's what we're going to do for the American people.
It's really stunning. Democrats say they want border security. They sounded like Donald Trump in the Obama years, but when it comes to making it happen, they stonewall, they deflect, they distract, they reveal their true open borders agenda. Now, despite overwhelming evidence that walls actually work, just this week, the Department of Homeland Security released new details on the progress that we have made since President Trump got into office on the border barriers in California, Texas, explaining that as of November 21st, 2018, Customs and Border Protection, they have constructed more than 31 of the 40 miles that were authorized by Congress last year. The remaining 9 miles scheduled for completion soon, adding that, quote, the bottom line, walls work. When it comes to stopping drugs, illegal aliens across our borders, border walls have proven to be extremely effective. Take a look at the before and after photos from the DHS of the El Centro border in, well, there you can see Southern California. And while those are encouraging results, there's a lot more to do, which is why the president is forging ahead with his demand for $5 billion to fully secure our country. It's a national security issue. Make people safe on both sides of the border. We learned of a horrible tragedy tonight. A 7-year-old girl from Guatemala died of dehydration and shock after crossing into the U.S. illegally with her father in the remote New Mexico desert. It's like I have been saying over and over again. A wall can prevent these types of heartbreaking stories once people know they can't get in. They're not going to come. It's a treacherous journey, dangerous. They ran out of food and water, apparently, for days before she crossed into this country. A tragedy that can be avoided. It's also an issue of national security. We're also learning a suspected terrorist is the one leading the group of Central American migrants demanding $50 grand in reparations from the U.S. each to return home. Name is Alfonso Guerrero Aloa, is suspected of the 1987 bombing in Honduras that wounded 6 American soldiers. And of course, as I've said many times, look, most people I'm sure come here because they want more opportunity for themselves and their family, but a wall with a big door is the way to do it. We'll do it legally for everybody. Now, they want a better life. But even if illegal immigrants, with the best of intentions, it comes at a major cost to you, the taxpayer. Look at this recent study for each illegal immigrant that does successfully cross our border. Well, it costs you, the American people, 70 grand per year. The fact is, we must have the ability to, A, vet anyone that wants to come into our country for our security, and now more than ever, we need a border wall. Common sense strategy actually works. The safety and security of the American people should always be a top priority for any U.S. president. Don't let the media, by the way, scare you about a government shutdown. Most of the government stays open. They don't shut down, including employees essential to national security, health, safety. Even the Postal Service will stay open. And yes, Grandma and Grandpa will get their Social Security checks. And I'll tell you one other thing. I will support anyone that's furloughed. They should get their full back pay. They should not be victims of what is a serious, important battle over our national security. And this holiday season, with so many servicemen and women away from their families, protecting our freedoms every day, keeping us safe. Remember, First Lady Melania Trump took some time to visit those soldiers. I was lucky enough to catch up with her aboard the USS George H.W. Bush. We give you a quick preview of part 2 of that interview. Even your young son has been brought into this at times. That doesn't, that would make me angry. Does that make you angry?
It does make me angry because children should be off limits. And I protect him and I want to give him normal life as possible. This is not normal life, but I like to protect him and give him the childhood that he deserves.
Isn't that something we could all agree with? We'll have part two moments away. But first, joining us now with reaction to all the latest, Lieutenant General Flynn news is The Hill's John Solomon, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, Fox News legal analyst, #1 best-selling author, The Russia Hoax, Greg Jarrett. Greg, let me start with you in particular here. I think the Federalists did a pretty good job because those text messages of Strzok and Page kind of refer to a different 302. Right. And I hear about a different 302 that Comey told Trey Gowdy that he likely read.
Yeah, 7-month gap between the interview and the date on the 302. Normally, there are 3 dates on a 302, the date of the interview, date of the draft of the 302, date of the supervisor's signature. No more than 3 or 4 weeks should there be a gap. 7 months, it suggests that exculpatory evidence was redacted or excluded. In other words, they falsified information and concealed other information. And if you doctor or phony up a 302 and present it to a court, I mean, that's a violation of the due process of Michael Flynn. It's also arguably obstruction of justice. It looks like Judge Sullivan, who initially ordered 10 months ago to hand over this stuff, is now ordering them again, give me those 302s by 3 o'clock tomorrow. This is on the eve of the sentencing. And if he finds that they falsified evidence, he can throw out the guilty plea of Flynn and set him free.
Why do I think we're headed in that direction? Sarah, you know, the interesting thing about this judge, Judge Sullivan, is he was so angry at the abuse of power back then in the Ted Stevens case, and he overturned that case. Ted Stevens' career was ruined by that point, but putting that aside, he ordered a special investigation into the investigators. He was so pissed off in a 14-minute rant that, as described by the New York Times, as brutalizing the people that prosecuted Ted Stevens.
Well, absolutely, Sean. And Ted Stevens is a perfect example of why Judge Sullivan now, who's sitting and overseeing the Flynn case, is so important. You know, one of the things that Greg said that's really important here is that gap, that timeline gap, that 7 months. It shouldn't even be 3 or 4 weeks. That's only in extenuating circumstances when an FBI agent is out in the field, maybe interviewing someone in a region where they can't have access to a computer. In a case such as this, with such high profile, I spoke to multiple, I don't want to say who, but multiple former senior FBI officials that said it has to be within 5 days, for recollection. That way they can go back to their notes. They have full recall of what happened during that interview. So what Judge Sullivan needs to ask for is the workflow chart. That workflow chart will show everything, not just the 302s, but the workflow chart, because that'll show who approved it, who it was sent to, and the date that the notes were put into the system, into the FBI system.
But, you know,
once they have that, I think that they'll have the answers.
And John, what it shows more than anything, this was week 1. McCabe's actions, Strzok's actions, Comey's actions, Comey's admission on that tape. Oh, we wouldn't do this in the Obama administration or the Bush administration. This is week 1 of the Trump administration. It shows me that it was set up from the get-go, day 1.
Well, I've been lucky to interview most FBI directors and former FBI directors. I have never in my life heard an FBI director talk the way that Director Comey did on Sunday night. It's not the language that FBI and law enforcement use. But let me say something else tonight about Mike Flynn. In May of 2017, there was a document identified to a small number of people in the United States government. It's in the possession of the Defense Intelligence Agency. For 18 months, there's been an effort to resist declassifying that document. I know that that document contains extraordinary exculpatory information about General Flynn. I don't believe the president has ever been told about the existence of this document. One lawmaker discovered it, but he was thwarted by the Defense Intelligence Agency in his ability to disclose it. I think we all should ask for that declassification, get that out. It may enlighten the judge. It will certainly enlighten the American public.
I think a 33-year vet deserves that. All right, we got to move on to some other issues. We can confirm tonight, Sarah Carter, you have an article. Financial experts testify. FBI is currently investigating the Clinton Foundation. How come we don't ever hear of any of these things? What's going on?
That's right. Well, you know, Sean, this is constant, right? It's a constant battle. John Solomon, John originally wrote the story about these whistleblowers. They testified today on the Hill to Chairman Mark Meadows and, you know, his House Oversight and Government Reform Committee that they were questioned by the FBI. They turned over the information to the FBI, and under some pretty brutal questioning, one of the investigators, a financial expert, by the way, they were very straightforward with the fact that they paid for their own investigation into this. They do this with other charitable foundations in order to seek the truth and, yes, to make money, because once they expose this and give it to the IRS does pay them for their investigations. So they basically admitted that the FBI is actually investigating the Clinton Foundation, and it's been ongoing.
John,
it's huge.
Yep.
Apparently you got a mention today.
Yeah, you know, I like to just ignore silliness, right? But I will tell you what happens sometimes. So, yeah, some people issued a statement suggesting I was an agent of Russia today. As I came here tonight, Sean.
By the way, everybody's an agent of Russia, apparently.
I apparently have to clear my future comments with Pravda.
He's laughing.
Yeah, no, it is pretty funny. But I'll tell you what's not funny. On the way here tonight, a woman stopped me on the street, angry and screaming at me, and tossed her tacos on me. I did come in smelling like taco dip tonight. I apologize. But the sort of vitriol and silliness that goes on, we ought to just stay focused on the facts and what happens every day in our lives. There's so many important things that were divulged today, and most of the media is chasing things that are irrelevant to these facts.
Last word, Greg Jarrett. You get it tonight.
Well, if you're talking about Hillary Clinton, the evidence is already there. I spent a chapter in my book talking about it. There's an internal audit by her foundation talking about how there was quid pro quo benefits, the Doug Band emails, which demonstrate that Bill Clinton didn't just cross the line of impropriety, he demolished it using the foundation as his own personal piggy bank, as his wife put a for sale sign on the door of her office as Secretary of State. It's good that there is an FBI investigation, and there should also be a grand jury to look at it.
I'm going to make a prediction. 2019 is going to be the year of boomerang number 2. You watch. Thank you all. Directly ahead, more on the FBI's stunning mistreatment of an American hero, Lieutenant General Flynn, investigative journalist Cheryl Atkinson, Congressman Jim Jordan. They will be here to respond. And also tonight, part 2, personal side, interview with Melania Trump, our First Lady. That coming up. Our top story tonight, as we mentioned in our opening monologue, Robert Mueller's team on defense tonight. Really serious claims. The FBI pressuring General Flynn to be interviewed without an attorney present. Well, that has now got the attention of U.S. District Judge Emmett G. Sullivan. He's now ordered Mueller to hand over all documents related to the Flynn interview by 3 p.m. tomorrow. And on top of that, then you have James Comey on tape boasting, oh, we totally took advantage of the fact that this is a new administration. We wouldn't have done this in the Obama or Bush years. Really? Here to discuss it more, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and the host of Sinclair's Full Measure, Cheryl Atkinson, is with us. Is this how we treat American heroes, that we now brag, oh, this is something that I wouldn't have done or gotten away with a more organized administration like the Obama administration and the Bush administration. So I took full advantage. On top of the deputy FBI director telling Flynn he doesn't need a lawyer and that they wanted him relaxed. Meanwhile, because of the unmasking and leaking of raw intelligence, something, by the way, Cheryl Atkinson knows pretty much about personally, they had a direct transcript that they shouldn't have had. Congressman, okay, when does this end and when do these people get held accountable? Instead of the people with the taxi medallions and the loan applications.
Well, that's why we've always said we need a second special counsel, because, you know, we can't put anyone in jail. We can just try to get answers. But you're so right, Sean. When you say I got away with something, that just tells you you didn't do it the right way. You didn't do it. You didn't follow the rules. You didn't do it the way you were supposed to. They were so focused on getting President Trump that they were willing to set up a lieutenant general, a guy who served our country, as you said, 33 years. So that's That's the most egregious part of this, what they did to General Flynn. The other thing I think it's important to understand is Mike Flynn ran the Defense Intelligence Agency. He had to know his conversations with Kislyak were being listened to, were being monitored. So he had to know that. There's no reason for him to come in there and say something that wasn't true. He just got caught because he didn't know they were setting him up like they did. And so Judge Sullivan demanding these documents is exactly what needs to happen.
The dynamic trio, Comey, McCabe, and Strzok, Cheryl Atkinson. You could relate this. You can relate to this, I'm sure, in your own way, especially on masking surveillance issues. But more importantly, I can't believe this has happened in our country. I don't care where you stand on the political spectrum.
I think you're getting at what I think is the bigger story, really, and is underreported in terms of how big it really is, which is the surveillance and other alleged abuses implemented by some bad actors in our intelligence community. And the problem is, I'm glad if Judge Sullivan is flirting around the edges of this in the Flynn case, but who ultimately does anything about it? Because those accused, as in the government computer intrusions to me or other things that we've talked about, are the ones who have the prosecutorial authority. And if they're not going to agree to investigate themselves and prosecute themselves, and so far they haven't, then where do you turn in all this?
I don't know how we remedy this between, you go back to, they're all the same characters in this play.
Yeah.
And, it's Strzok and Comey writing an exoneration before investigation. She was guilty. Biggest slam dunk obstruction case ever with the email server and not responding with a subpoena and erasing and bleach pit. And then, of course, the FISA abuse. James Comey's admission, Jim Jordan, they didn't vet it, but he put a signature on this thing to spy on an opposition party candidate. They've committed fraud against the FISA court. They don't even tell the judge who paid for it. So, it may have a political taint to it. That is not how things are supposed to work under this Constitution, under our Fourth Amendment rights.
No, you're exactly right. He said in the deposition last week that he didn't even know that they had a legal duty, if there was a legal duty, to present exculpatory information to the FISA judge. Of course you have to do that. And for the head of the FBI to say he didn't know that they technically had a legal duty to do that is scary. The other thing I come back to, Sean, is never forget the bias that exists with these key people. McCabe, Comey, Strzok, Page, Baker, these key people. Remember the name they gave the Clinton investigation. Mid-year exam. Something they had to get through. They knew the fix was in. They were going to get it taken care of, kind of get through the mid-year exam. But what was the name they gave the Trump-Russia investigation? Crossfire Hurricane. Just the names show you the bias that was there from the get-go with these top people at the FBI who ran both investigations.
And Cheryl, if you look at what they did in all of these cases here, they're involved, the same characters, the same players, the same people that had a bias. They did this on week one of the Trump administration. Sounds like an insurance policy to me. Sounds like a media leak strategy is coming thereafter.
It sounds like an operation. And something I think we learned from Comey, I was someone who kind of thought this was plowing old ground to look back at the Clinton material. But in light of what he said, Comey said in his testimony that Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, should have recused herself and didn't, and was either compromised or appeared to be, not just from the tarmac meeting, but about some other unnamed material we don't know about. Number two, he says, had he known about Agent Strzok and Page's text messages, he wouldn't have let them stay on the investigation that they did on Clinton.
Oh, that's right. And they wiped clean the phones of Strzok and Page when he worked for Mueller. And you know why I question Jeannie Ray and Andrew Weissman and Mueller's choice of his team, all Democratic donors? This is why. Pretty disgraceful. All right, thank you both. When we come back, more of my exclusive interview with Melania Trump. That's up next, right here. Stay with us on Hannity. Here now is part two of my exclusive interview with the First Lady, Melania Trump, and I asked her about the media's attacks, even on her own son, Barron. We'll talk about the Me Too movement and much more. Let's talk about the media, and there's been a lot of controversy because he says it's fake news, or some of it's fake news. Do you agree?
Some of it it's fake news. I would say don't believe everything what you hear and what you read. Not all of it, but some of it, it's fake news.
Even your young son has been brought into this at times. That doesn't, that would make me angry. Does that make you angry?
It does make me angry because children should be off limits, and I protect him and I want to give him normal life as possible. This is not normal life, but I like to protect him and give him the childhood that he deserves.
You feel it's working out as best you can? I've met him. He seems like a young, very respectful, happy kid.
He's very happy, he's strong, he's tough, he's enjoying life in Washington.
Who's he more like, the fighter, the outward fighter, Donald, or his mom?
He has both qualities. He's a fighter. He's a fighter. He has a soft, beautiful heart, but he's a fighter too, and he's very strong.
Do you find with all the issues that your husband deals with, foreign policy, Russia, China, little rocket man, use his term, all the issues with employment, regulation, energy, borders, the wall, are you mostly in agreement on the big issues that he fights for every day?
With policies, some of them I agree, some I don't, and I give him my opinion. But he's the president. He was elected, so.
When all is said and done, and you now have taken a more public role, what do you want people to know about what issues matter to you the most? I know you have your Be Best campaign. You've seen the military. You're traveling the world now more than you have. What do you want people to know about what's important to you as First Lady?
Well, my Be Best initiative, it's in early stages, and I'm very proud what I accomplished so far. And I have 3 pillars that it's focusing on. It's well-being of children, opioid crisis, and social media use. So I travel the country, I meet with the people, I meet with the parents, and I want to shine a spotlight on the organization and programs that support children and want to be the best for them to grow up in responsible adults.
On borders in particular, you did go down to the border and you met with a lot of Border Patrol guys. I've been down there 13 times in my 23 years at Fox. Everywhere from the Rio Grande to San Diego, in drug warehouses. When you're down there and you see with your own eyes what's going on, is the wall in your head the only answer?
I think we need the wall to protect the country.
The security?
The security, to protect it from the drugs. Of course, we know we will always have people coming over, but this is one solution that we could stop big caravans coming over. And I was at the border and saw firsthand and met with Border Patrol, and I see what they do 24/7, and their hands are full.
We saw rocks and bottles being pelted at them.
Correct.
And they tried to crash the border like the southern border of Mexico. You recently spoke out about the Me Too movement. We saw what happened with Justice Kavanaugh in his confirmation hearing, which to me is so over the top. But you also said, yes, we take it seriously, listen to women, but then you've talked about due process and the presumption of innocence. Do you feel that's missing in this movement?
I think we should all be heard, women and men. We need to be heard and we need to be treated equal.
Remember every time before we ever heard from some of the individuals in the Justice Kavanaugh case, you'd hear people say, I believe. We hadn't heard from anybody.
You can't believe till you're proven guilty. You cannot be guilty till you're proven guilty. And that's very important that we follow the law.
I want to talk about your journey a little more because we kind of glossed over it. Because you grew up in a small town, Slovenia, then you're a model in Milan and in Paris. You were independent, you were alone at that time.
Correct.
Now, did you grow up wanting to be a model, or?
I studied design and architecture and stopped my study architecture because I wanted to go in modeling business and professional career as a model. So I moved to Milan and Paris and then
How
New
young
York.
were you at that time?
I started modeling in Slovenia first when I was 16. and then went to Milan, and then start from then on.
Were you with your parents, or were you
I was
independent?
alone.
You were alone.
Independent, yes.
So you grew up fast at a young age, independent
Correct.
at a young age.
Yes.
As you look back on that, and then your journey from Paris and Milan to New York, did that make you the person that says that they are confident, a good friend, and true to herself?
Yes. My journey made me that.
Madam First Lady, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, you won't believe this. The mainstream media is reacting negatively to my interview with the First Lady. They cannot help themselves. It's pathetic. Joe Concha, Rachel Campos Duffy, when we come back, straight ahead. The aired, the media predictably, sadly, pounced to criticize whatever they can come up with. This is beyond pathetic. Watch.
Here is this extraordinary story of a woman who came to this country as an immigrant, as a model, and is now the First Lady of the United States. And, you would think in her rare public appearances, that some terrible wrong has been done to her in this country. So I've always been surprised by that air of grievance that she carries very publicly with her.
The First Lady is echoing exactly what the President says. And they're crying, the President has cried fake because he doesn't like the truth that's being reported. And now the First Lady, who at one point used to see it clearer, we thought, than she is now.
Meanwhile, President Trump took to Twitter this morning to comment on the anti-gay slur made by one of his most ardent critics, MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski. The president tweeted, quote, "If it was a conservative that said what crazed Mika stated on our show yesterday using a certain horrible term, that person would be banned permanently from television. She will probably be given a pass despite their terrible ratings. Congratulations to Rick Grinnell, our great ambassador to Germany, for having the courage to take this horrible issue on." Here now with Reaction to Hill's Joe Concha, Fox News contributor Rachel contributor Rachel Campos Duffy. Merry Christmas. I'll get it out. Joe, let me start with you. I got to be honest. It is so predictable. I am convinced that if the Trumps gave every person in the United States $5 million this Christmas, everybody, and cured cancer, they'd still criticize them. There's every second, minute, hour of every single day of the year. They can't stop it. It's their drug today. They need a fix every day to hate.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it was surprising.
Opinion, go ahead, Rachel. Sorry.
Oh, I thought you were talking. Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, Rachel, go.
Okay, I was just going to say, I saw in the Washington Post that they had a headline about your interview with Melania, and it was all about how her poll numbers are so low. They refuse to look at what she's doing and what she's saying. By the way, I'm surprised her poll numbers and her husband's poll numbers are holding in the 40s with how much negative, unrelenting press they get. Those numbers are built on results. And what Melania was talking about with you in the interview is absolutely right. She's frustrated. They refuse to report on the results of the administration, and all they want to do is go negative, negative, negative.
You know, I was there. I saw all these events yesterday, Joe. It's like the military lit up. I can't even tell you. It was great for them. They deserve this. And still, you know what? It's so petty. They attack everybody in that family. And, you know, if they can't get Russia collusion, now it's campaign finance. They never, ever report on the other side of it, which is, all the Clinton crimes that we can prove and collusion with Russia we can prove.
And Sean, I tend to trust local media. I still think that's quite strong. If you read those media accounts of Melania Trump's visit to Joint Langley yesterday, for instance, she was met with cheers and applause when she met with servicemen and women. And I don't know how you could come away from your interview and say, she's whining about the job. I don't see that at all, because I'm the type of guy who bases people on their actions. And the bottom line is that this is the kind of gutter speculation that we see with the president as well, where we have mind readers or people playing doctor on TV in terms of trying to get in the president's head. But the First Lady is obviously clearly enjoying her job, and she's going to places like Alaska like she did last month to visit with troops. So Kimmel, and look, English is her fifth language. Less than 1% of the world's population, which is 7.7 billion people, can speak 5 languages. So it's kind of ironic that a late night host is mocking an immigrant. No irony there. But look, first ladies are sympathetic figures overall. Doesn't matter who you are. And when you have children in the White House, whether that is Melania Trump, Michelle Obama, Laura Bush, or the Clintons, go ahead, criticize and mock. There is no upside to it, Sean.
The irony is, Rachel, you're right about something. The president's approval rating is exactly where Obama's was at his time in his presidency. So
that's right.
With all the talk
and think about all the fawning press, Sean. I mean, that the Obama